Hey, today is part 4 of walking you through how I closed a 30K marriage client last week, going through all those steps. I started with part 1 earlier this week, going through the hook that caught this prospect's attention, walked through the sales mechanism that I used to further increase the curiosity, went through some of the questions and kind of the core beliefs that I need to pre-sell to get to the point where I could sell a 30K offer. Today, I'm going to handle and walk you through some of the objections that I got, and one of the ones that you should expect, especially if you have a high ticket coaching program. I can handle them, pre-sell them, anticipate them, and knock them down even before somebody sees your offer altogether. So if this is the first time joining one of my lives, I'm Brian Czekanski, and I help coaches in particular 10x their high ticket sales without any sales calls whatsoever. So most coaches don't believe it when I say I can't, I can close 10, 20, 30K clients all via email, one-to-one conversations. That's why I make it super easy for people to get started and see that it works for them and actually prove that it works for them by putting out a test, asking for no upfront investment altogether. And I only get paid when that coach gets paid. Once their money hits the account, that's when I invoice them to pay at the end of the month. So let's walk you through some of the core objections that I had in terms of this. So actually, like anytime you're selling a high ticket program, there's going to be a kind of a questioning from that prospect, like, okay, is this worth it? Is there a return on investment here? And the same thing came up here. So as I thought about this objection that I was getting, especially in terms of that 30K offer, really thought about it in terms of the longer term picture. So again, this coach kind of sat there as kind of that last ditch effort to kind of save that marriage. So he's flying in, trying to reconcile this marriage as much as possible and give either the wife or the husband a little bit more information, more of a roadmap on how to save this marriage, the simple action that they can take on a daily basis to improve the relations with their spouse and ultimately get to the point where they can avoid divorce and potentially improve it to the point where in this case, the husband will eventually dump the mistress, come back home, and see a path forward with that. So one of the key things that I thought about is like, okay, like if you're fighting for your marriage, like this is one of those things where, especially if you're, think about when you're 85, like, do you have regrets about like potentially saving your marriage? Like think back, like think forward in time. And this is kind of one of the things that I talked to this prospect about. Do you really want to have that regret of you didn't do everything that you could to potentially save this marriage? Like this, hiring this coach and have him fly out kind of allows you to, not have any of those regrets. Like he's going to do everything he can. And he's done this before for other couples to potentially save their marriage. So he's like that kind of marriage paramedic who kind of comes in, gives you all the insights on what's going on, what is possible, is this relationship worth saving? And even if it isn't worth saving, he's going to create a much more amicable relationship. So if you do go through a divorce, it's going to be less costly, it's going to be less heartache, all those kind of things going forward. And it makes it more likely if they do go through a divorce, that next relationship that they go into isn't as disastrous. So again, that's all the things that I talked about, really putting into the longer term picture of like, this will alleviate any regrets or questions that you have. Like you've done everything once this coach comes out and sits down with you and your spouse at this point in time in your marriage, like you can kind of alleviate all those fears and questions and regrets that you might have later on in life. And if you think about like, what is that worth? Like being able to, again, go through the rest of your life and not have any regrets and say like, I did everything that I could to fight for this marriage. Like how much is that worth? In my mind, and certainly I talked to with her, like that's certainly worth 6 figures at least in terms of value for doing that. So that was one of the key things that came through. And the other part is like, just walking through specifically what this coach does and giving her the return on investment that she's going to get right away. So maybe he's not going to save their marriage on that day, but like one of the things he can give her insight down into is like what's going on in her checked out spouse's head. Like, is he like, what's going on with the mistress? Like giving her real insight into all these things that she couldn't actually ask her husband, but as kind of like that third party advocate for her marriage, he can give her those insights that nobody else could. So super valuable in terms of like, okay, like, maybe she is continuing to put in effort and there's just whatever reason, there's no chance there. Or if she can really get his perspective on, okay, like, where's this going? Where did they go wrong? And what are those potential actions that she should take? super helpful in terms of like, okay, like maybe it's past the point where this marriage could be saved, and that's going to save her a lot of heartache or maybe years and years of trying, and it's not worth it. So again, that saving of time, saving of some of that desperation. So really think about that as you go out to your prospects. Like, what's that longer term value proposition? What's the return on investment that they can get right away? In this case, it's a 2-day intensive where he shows up over those 2 days. Like, what can they get immediate value where they'll get that return on investment for that 30K? And then thinking longer term, like, what is that value proposition as well? And then like the key objective that I get all the time is like, is this offer right for me? And that's where you really have to go back. And obviously I only work with coaches that have a long list of testimonials. So that's where I really dig into those testimonials based on the information that I know, and based on their backstory and their story like that. That's where I'm really going to dig into that testimonial vault and say like, okay, here's a couple different examples of people just like you that were going through that exact same situation as you. Here's their transformation. Here's how they talked about when they were in your shoes. In this case, I probably sent her anywhere from 5 to 10 different testimonials of people just like her that were talking about, like, again, a husband that was off with a mistress who had, they'd been separated for one period of time. And it was kind of like, even people that were in a worst case scenario for her. So to give her perspective, like, you think your situation is bad, here's a testimony of somebody that was even in a worse situation. They were able to get to the other side with this coach's help. So super important to kind of give people perspective of, everybody thinks their problems are unique, but really giving a perspective of like, hey, actually, we've helped people that are in much worse situations. They were able to get results in this amount of time. They got this great return on investment. Here's how they talk about their life afterwards. Super important in terms of talking about that. So those were kind of the key objections that I had. One other objection that I had is, how can I get my spouse to show up on that day? So again, I had to kind of give her a word for word script on how she could have that conversation with her husband, what she should say, how she should talk to, like, what he wants versus what she wants, to get him really like not only show up on the day, but be excited to kind of show up on that day as well. So like another key objection that she came back with. So really think about like, what is the key, like, in this case, it's kind of 2 people showing up on that day, but like, what are those key beliefs? What are those key things that you have to answer? And if you could do them even before you put out the offer beforehand, that's really important as you go through that. So, and especially in this case where there's a lot of people on this coach's list that it's opted in for a free lead magnet and things like that. I did get a lot of people that were assuming that this guy would fly out for free and give them value for free. So one of the things I did, even before I put the offer in front of them, and say like, okay, like this is at least a 5-figure investment here. So if you have the means to do that, like, let me know. Otherwise, I've got a more suitable option for you. So again, just putting, like, not blowing the, like, kind of previewing of what that price is going to be, especially in the high ticket perspective, especially if you've got a 10, 20, 30K type of offer, putting out the breadcrumbs in terms of like, okay, this is a significant investment. And okay, if you don't have those resources, let's move on. And that allowed me to kind of go through as many of those freebie seekers as much as possible. Those people that didn't have the resources, they just replied back, yeah, that's out of my budget. I was able to downsell them potentially to an online course that he had. That was just a few $100s. So it just kind of quickened up that process as much as possible. So even before you get to the offer, especially if it's a significant investment, feel free to put that in front of people. Give them the opportunity to say no. That gives you an easy way to save some of your time, downsell them into the best option, and to go from there. So hope that was helpful in terms of the lives and kind of walking through some of the objections to the high ticket type of offerings. Hit that like button on whatever platform you're on. Smash that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, and I'll see you on a future live.